Sam from Road Trail Run here. I want to give you my first impressions after a hike and a run of the Salomon X Alpine Pro, a brand new shoe from Salomon coming soon. It has a 24 millimeter heel, 18 millimeter forefoot, so that's a 6 millimeter drop. It's $160. It weighs, based on my 8.5 US sample, 10.9 ounces or 309 grams. It's designed and intended for high mountain pursuits by Salomon. You can see here the wide toe bumper and what Salomon calls the climbing zone down in here. It has a super secure upper. We're going to talk about that in a moment. One of the best trail shoe uppers I've ever experienced. It's also unusual for a Salomon in that it does not have Salomon's Profil film rock protection plate. So unlike many Salomons, it's a very flexible shoe. During our hike on all those rocks on the Crawford Path in New Hampshire this weekend, 13 miles worth of them, every kind of rock you could imagine, the support was outstanding, and the rock protection pretty decent. Given that 18 millimeter forefoot stack, that's actually quite a bit more than, for example, the much lighter Sense Pro 3, which is only 18-14 with the film, which really has in comparison a much harsher ride. You could think of the XA Alpine Pro as the successor to the XA Elevate of the last couple years, one of our really favorite shoes here at Road Trail Run over the last couple years. The XA Elevate weighed 0.3 of an ounce less, and it was a great all-arounder. However, there are some key differences between these two to highlight. First, the XA Elevate had that Profil film plate, so it was a considerably stiffer shoe. And you can also see the toe box in the front of our XA Alpine Pro is Salomon's new, more rounded design. We've seen that on social media posts of Salomon athletes over the last year or so. This new shape provides lots of security and very decent room. The bumper is softer than the XA Elevate, and you've got that big rubber wrapping up. The mesh is a dense, also fairly soft mesh, so the whole front of the shoe flexes very well. I have not yet been able to run it on super fast downhills. I don't do much of that these days, but Jeff Valeri in Boulder is going to test it on his usual routes to see how the rock protection is underfoot. But I had no issues, no sore feet after the 13 miles of trails. Now today I took them on my usual test loop with single track in the forest with quite a few rocks and roots, but considered obviously smoother than the high mountain stuff. And much to my surprise, I set my fastest ever time on the loop, second only to the S-Lab Sense 7 soft ground, which weighs well over 3 ounces less. Now what's interesting is the XA Alpine Pro runs much lighter than its weight. I found it climbed very well on the two steep short uphills. I could really feel that climbing zone rubber working. The flexibility was great on a smoother twisty section where I actually set a PR on that section. Surprising me, I thought it would be the uphills. One thing I did notice at slower paces on smoother flat trails was you do notice the climbing zone at the front and the bumper. You feel something's there extra. It's not an issue, but it's something to be aware of. Now this shoe, the upper is probably one of the finest, if not the finest, trail shoe uppers I've ever worn. It's totally secure. We have that wide toe box. What's interesting is here on the lateral side we have a mesh, non-stretch mesh, similar to what was on the XA Elevate. But on the medial side, we have some reinforcing supportive panels, and they worked super well. The tongue is, we have a kind of a booty construction tongue with the Salomon Endo fit down to the midsole. A little hard to show you that. The tongue itself has kind of a spongy feel to it. There were no bite whatsoever, either on the hike or the run from the quick laces, even snugged quite a ways down. Now there's some interesting details at the heel counter, the Achilles collar. You can see it's almost a dual layer or two sections, and it works extremely well. Underfoot here, and we're getting details in the advanced chassis, there is also a carbon plate, a carbon edging chassis towards the rear, somewhere in here. Also very effective, super stable on all terrain. That's really a highlight of the shoe. Now, where does it fit in the Salomon lineup? Well, the XA Elevate, which we all loved, is no longer in the 2020 catalog. So we can think of this as the replacement. If you thought the Sense Pro 3 was harsh and thin and just not enough cushioning for technical terrain, and you don't mind a bit of extra weight that you really won't feel when you run, then look at the XA Alpine Pro. The extra stack here, even though the midsole foam is about the firmest of any Salomon, really cushions quite well. Now, if you're also thinking more door to trail and the high mountains or the rougher trails aren't for you, then definitely look at the Sense Ride 2. It's a beautiful shoe, softer, has a bit more stack height, softer foam, and it's also quite flexible even with its Profil film. Of course, it has a lower profile set of lugs. Now, as far as the lugs and the outsole, back to the rocks where this thing is really intended. On our hike, it held everything, and I'm usually pretty timid, but I was walking down slabs that usually I'd be worried about. We didn't have any wet traction, much wet rock to test. I do note that the Contragrip outsole here is called Contragrip TA, and it's not called out as the premium wet grit Contragrip. So looking in the Salomon catalog, other shoes with TA include the Speedcross 5 GTX and the Spike and Snowcross winter shoes. So we're going to get some more details on that. So where and who for the XA Alpine Pro? Well, I'd call it a great all-arounder, especially if your trails are more technical. Of course, it's designed for high mountain scrambling with the climbing features, the climbing zone and the big bumper, so it shares some climbing shoe characteristics, also the carbon chassis. But it's really a great all-arounder for more technical trails so far for me. Is it an ultra shoe? Maybe for some people, but it is a relatively firm ride. Although I must say, after our 13-mile hike, I had absolutely no foot soreness whatsoever, which is pretty amazing. So please stay tuned to Road Trail Run for our full written review coming soon, and please subscribe to our channel. Thank you very much for watching.